Hey guys, welcome to my talk today. First of today. This is about all things information stealers. I'm kind of mainly teaching you about really how sneaky they can really be, because there's things that you may or may not have came across them with them that you might realize. A quick TMI. I'm a threat intel analyst at Italian. Regularly speak at conferences as well. This is actually my second time speaking at Securi-Tay. I'm part of the Edinburgh Kendo Club. Love all things puzzles and connecting blocks that free serotonin, and travel and exploring as well. That was like me with like other people I know at B-Side Newcastle, which I also spoke at. Quick agenda for today. So kind of teach you about the fundamentals, what pretty much an information stealer is, the types, because there's a lot, and malware in disguise, so that'll be about how sneaky they can get, and the rise, impact, and the fall of it, mitigations, and then finally conclusion. Information stealers, what are they? They're a type of malware designed to pretty much gather information. It's in the name. From like a system, they can gather various bits of like passwords, credentials, crypto wallets, you name it. They also operate as part of like the MAS, so it's malware as a service, which is basically where you build the malware and sell off from a subscription ranging from like price per week to whatever. It ranges from a lot of the InfoStealerz. It doesn't apply to all of them, but I think a lot of them are pretty much shifting towards it because it is a profit. It's a similar thing with ransomware as a service. So it's like you have the operators that make the ransomware, and then you sell it off to other threat actors, so that way they can use your thing. Methods of operation include like keyloggers, hooking browsers, clipboard monitoring, and a lot of other things as well. So this is kind of like just a quick overview from like the CyberGov AU advisory on InfoStealerz. So shows you kind of like what they kind of latch onto and how they're like kind of like a part of it. They love credentials, obviously, but they also like to be associated with other bits of malware, so it can be loaded on, pay loaded off. It's, you name it. It's just a variety. So types. So think about your types as Power Rangers, right? You have like different kinds and different colors, right? Each with their own ability. So these are just a few. To wrap them off. So we got Luma, Still C, Raccoon, Redline, Meta, Vidar, Rise Pro, and Banshee. And there's many, many more. I think at the time when I was doing this, there's been about, to my knowledge, about 3 or 4 more information stealers discovered. So it's like a Hydra. You cut one head off and 2 more go back. It's like they're just going to constantly show up. Like one was called Flesh Stealer. It doesn't actually steal your flesh, but yeah, the names they give them are crazy. So there's a quick bio on some of them. So we got Luma, which is aka Luma C2. Well, it was C2 communications. So this is a well-known one within the sphere, designed and written in C language and available through the MAS model as well. It primarily targets like crypto wallets and MFA browser extensions before stealing the victim machine. And then when data is confirmed, it'll exfiltrate to C2 server. It'll use like a HTTP post request using like the agent there, user agent there. This is kind of just an example of like where latches onto. It loves like cracked software or other things. Like this is how malware kind of festers. So obviously for reasons like if you don't want to pay licenses, you go to crack stuff. Be wary because malware loves that shit. So you got Vidar as well. So this was first served in 2018. So Vidar is an InfoStealerz designed to use social media like Steam. This is a C2 on a Steam profile page. So you may have came across information stealer without even realizing. As a credit to Cyphermia about that one. This is actually what Vidar's main page looks like. It's actually kind of like an ode to one of the Norse gods of vengeance, like Son of Odin. It's like a whole thing on their page, but amazing. But they also operate as a MAS model as well. It's set up in a way also that Vidar admin operations are done through a dedicated website rather than setting up their own C2 operations. So there's a bit more of an ease for these kind of attackers. You got Redline. This is a pretty popular one because mainly it's affordable for attackers. So with the cheaper it is, the more likely it is to be enticing for attackers to do it. Redline will infect typically systems through phishing emails, fake downloads such as apps to crack games, serve the target data in stored in web browsers, grabbing passwords, credit card details, you name it. It's not just files, also from instant messaging apps, VPNs, gaming platforms like Discord and Steam. Discord and Steam particularly have been used a lot to push Information Stealer. And again, it's legitimate platforms used to be abused. And this is kind of like just the outline of what Redline will look like on Telegram. Redline will get mentioned a few times for different reasons for this talk. So you get Raccoon. And Raccoon is another popular one that was observed serving in April 2019. Targets sensitive information like crypto wallets, login information, you name it. Delivered through exploit kits, fake software downloads, and phishing emails. It went through a hiatus in 2022 because the owner died. So it had to, things shifted. Basically, that's what happened. So they introduced new features and then they abandoned Telegram for the C2 communication. And then again, that's what it looks like, getting crack software and keygen stuff. Malware loves it. So moving on to that, we get malware in disguise. It's not related to Transformers, but you get the idea. You know, it's a truck turned into something else. So Information Stealers like to blend into environments, you know, to trick users into downloading malicious content. The disguise methods observed has been repeatedly successful, I feel. Disguise methods, which something I've observed something like on Twitter, because people, a lot of like people in the TI sphere, they communicate this stuff. So YouTube can be fake conspirators, I've seen. Fake Reddit websites, gaming cheat software. So Lua was a gaming scripting engine, primarily used for like game cheats, that was abused. And then the following examples I'll be looking at, talking through about how Information Stealers can use that. So, Capacha pages. So a large-scale malvertising campaign distributed limit stealers through 3 Capacha verification pages. This prompted to run PowerShell commands to verify they weren't a bot. And the campaign leveraged like the Mallon ad network to propagate over 1 million ad impressions across 3,000 sites. Malicious operation dubbed Deception Labs by Guerrilla Labs. Infoblock researchers believed to be conducted by a threat actor named Ian Viper. The threat actor would use the ad network to basically serve pop-up ads promoting fake offers, download services, and then appeal to like such hosting sites like typically used for pirate streaming and software platforms. So once the victim would click on it and the ad, the obfuscated code checks whether it's an actual person or not, validate it. Oh, I skipped it. Spoilers. So redirects it to a fake Capacha page through BMob cloaking service, although BMob's a legitimate thing for tracking performance aberrants or performance. In this case, it's solely used for evasion purposes. And the Capacha page uses a JavaScript snipper to assign a copy of malicious PowerShell. One line will user's clipboard without them realizing it. And then the page provides instructions on how the victim to copy the Capacha solution into your Windows Run dialog, which will look like there essentially, and download Limit Stealers through a remote server, and so on. This is kind of just like an overview from Guerrilla Labs about how it was done. More or less how I explain it, but yeah, it's using like legitimate services that pretty much people use for advertisement to push malicious things. So it's another thing in a situation where attackers have taken advantage of them. So LDAP Nightmare. This one was quite interesting. This one was kind of happened last month. So this is a proof of concept for CVE 2024-49113, aka LDAP Nightmare. This is on GitHub, so this affected a user with InfoStealer malware. And this was reported by Trend Micro. So they showed that the malicious GitHub repo contained a project that appeared to have been forked from SafeBreach, which was another company that had made the proof of concept for the CV that was published in January 1st. The patch itself was one of 2 impacting LDAP, which Microsoft addressed in December 2024's Patch Tuesday, while Stealer was an RC problem tracked as 49112. SafeBreach's initial blog post about the proof of concept was wrongfully mentioning the CV, whereas the proof of concept was actually meant for another one, which ended up being like a lower severity denial of service vulnerability. The problem with this, though, is that it created buzz and attracted attention to it around LDAP Nightmare and the potential for attacks, which led to the case of Information Stealer getting pushed. So users downloading the proof of concept from the malicious repo will get a EPX-packed exe called poc.exe, which upon execution would drop a PowerShell script to the victim's temp folder. The script creates a schedule job in the compromised system, which executes a encoded script and fetches a third script from pastebin. And then the final payload itself would collect machine information, different bits of like things related to the machine itself, upload a zip archive, and then basically exfiltrate it to a external FTP server. And that's what it looked like. So right there. But you wouldn't realize. That's a funny thing. You might think that looks a bit suspicious, but for an ordinary person, like that might be trying to research these proof of concepts, you might not think twice and think, oh, well, other people might be replicating it, and then you download it by mistake. It's the same way, when it's easy to blame the user when you're clicking on a phishing email. Oh, it looks like a dodgy link, but that's just the same concept. Like you don't realize it, and it's perfectly fine to be fooled by it because it is clever. So CrowdStrike repair manual. So everyone's familiar with the CrowdStrike incident that happened in July last year, and basically pretty much DDoS machines around the world. So the CrowdStrike created a repair manual post this to kind of help people get back on their feet. Attackers took advantage of this and created a fake guide instead through a malicious campaign conducted through phishing emails. So the emails contain instructions for a recovery tool that was actually in guise at the time of the information stealer called Daplo. I probably pronounced that wrong, but there's too many information stealers. So when the malware is active at the heart of his account credentials, browser history, you name it, the Daplo stealer is spread through a malicious word attachment called that. I'm not going to read that out, but you get the gist. The doc is copied from a Microsoft support bulletin, providing and using a new recovery tool that automates the deletion of a CrowdStrike driver from Windows machine. It's a legitimate bulletin as well, but again, it tries to guise it. The document does contain macros when enabled, and then download a base64 encoded DDL file, an external source that drops in the temp folder. And then afterwards, the macro uses Windows assert util to decode the DLL, which is executed to launch the information stealer on the compromised machine. The applet will terminate all running processes in Chrome and attempt to collect login information and cookies saved on Chromium browsers. And then the stolen data is simply saved into that temp folder and then finally wiped and then sent back to the attacker C2. And that's what it looked like. That is the information stealer. But again, you wouldn't really think twice. And again, in the situation I got there where you're desperate to kind of get your stuff back on, you'll take anything. So it was a debt processor situation. It wouldn't work twice, obviously, now, because people be like, that happened last year. But they knew that. So this one is quite interesting, and may somebody might have heard about it. So this was related to a free-to-play game that was on Steam, the Steam store, that was observed actually distributing the Vidar information stealer malware. This one we talked about earlier, where it likes to use Steam. So this game was actually present in the Steam store from February 6th to the 12th, and was actually downloaded by over 1,500 users. The Steam didn't confirm that, but the stats showed it was downloaded that way. Maris, I can't remember his name, but Stefano, who obtained the sample malware, noted that the information that was hidden in the pirate.exe as a payload, hardware.exe, info setup installer. So he told People in Computer, who was the person at their company that kind of reported this. So the threat actor modified the game several times using various obfuscation techniques and changing the command and control service for credential exfiltration. Maris explained that the Web3 blockchain crystal references in the pirate file name were actually potentially targeting a specific player base. And then the information stealer malware would target credentials, session cookies, secrets, saved in the user's browser, you name it. And that's what it looked like. That was the malware there. But again, it's one thing it's a free-to-play game. You don't think twice about it because it's Steam's a legitimate platform. But yeah, my gripe with it is that Steam should have done more to kind of put measures in place, because they only have SMS at the moment, I believe. But I'm hoping that this kind of gives them a wake-up call to monitor more for malicious stuff, because I don't see this being the first of being the last time we see something like this. And the credits up. So the rise, impact, and fall. So skip a few. So the origins of information stealers are a bit hard to pinpoint. Some malware in the early 90s, 2000s did use it. However, notably the Zeus malware, which was a notorious malware back in 2007, all over the place. It was a banking Trojan that was designed to attack banks, steal information, which was truly to be the first observable information stealer. It used a variety of methods, including keylogging, form grabbing, stealing sensitive information from affected machines. Threat actors would use the leaked information to perform unauthorized transfers of victims' accounts to attackers' account. And then the development of Zeus led to like a turning point to where information stealers picked up on this and being like, you can adopt this. And then things gradually evolve over time. Like malware does in its history, it always will change. So the impact. Since its inception, information stealers have caused major disruption and damage around the world. Particularly the Mallon's operation information stealers have are linked to threat actors gaining the advantage when it comes to initial access as part of a large companies. This includes ransomware itself. So, if instead of you trying to like purposely try and get initial access, someone's already got the credentials, you buy it and you can launch your ransomware. So this kind of little chart here from Flashpoint kind of highlighted that in the mid-year of 2024, from January 1st to 30th, highlighting the impact of information stealers. Just shows you 4.8 million total infected hosts, 13 million totally infected hosts PD, and then 25 million unique stolen credentials. Flashpoint intelligence team observed overall in 2024 in a recent blog that information stealing malware affected over 18 million machines, resulting in exposure and sale of over 2.4 billion compromised credentials. And sensitive data include a lot of information data and financials, a lot of PI data, and then a lot of threat actors carry out crippling ransomware attacks as a result. And then kind of a blog there for them. So these are a few kind of examples of the impact. So this is something recently from Troy Hunt from Have a Mapone. He kind of put up this week that he had over 284 million accounts stolen by information stealers, found a Telegram channel known as Alien Text-Based. Troy mentioned that he found his accounts for analyzing 1.4 terabyte stealer logs. So stealer logs are, for those unfamiliar with it, it's like a login source for what information stealers would dump all the data on it and pretty much sell it on underground channels. So you may see sometimes if you've looked at breach form and you see 100k.combo list or whatever, that might be linked to an information stealer and they'll sell it off and they use those credentials for various reasons. So Troy further stated the following: they contain 23 billion rows with 493 million unique website and email address pairs, affecting 284 million unique email addresses. We've also added 244 million passwords that have never been seen before to PWN passwords and updated the accounts against another 199 million already in use. Due to the large amount of data and information contained within the collection, it's likely both old and new credentials stolen through credential stuffing attacks and data breaches. And that's like his website there if you want to have a bit more further reading. So, what do OpenAI and Snowflake have in common? OpenAI and Snowflake is a company, maybe gathered. So OpenAI was actually kind of sort of somewhat not a victim, but was subjected to kind of like, I suppose, a breach recently, but it turned out to be information stealers kind of gathering things. So they had subject to alleged breach after a threat actor was offering sell credentials through breach forms. This wasn't really the case. And reported by Security Week, OpenAI mentioned that they didn't observe any evidence that there was credentials leaked to compromise on their own systems. Rather, it was noted by a threat intel firm, Kayla, who sampled the data available by an attacker like I obtained through information stealing malware. It was quoted by Kayla. These credentials were cross-referenced through their own data leak of compromised credentials through information stealing malware, which contains more than 1 billion records, which include over 4 million bots collected in 2024. Furthermore, Kayla noted that these credentials appear to be part of larger data scripts from a mixture of private and public sources, and then the source sell and share InfoStealerz logs. And that's kind of like there, right there. Snowflake attack hacks linked to Santander Ticketmaster breaches. So this was the big one, kind of in May, June last year. It's led to the point that Ticketmaster had to file a breach to the SEC, which is like equivalent of like the ICO for us. Like, we have to file breaches to the governing body. So Snowflake was a cloud data platform was impacted by information stealer malware. Attack didn't stem from the enterprise environment itself, but rather it was linked back to customer credentials, compromised credentials, sorry. So Snowflake's clients included Ticketmaster, Santander, AT&T, MasterCard, and so on. As Mandiant of Google, who investigated the incident, noted that UNC, which is like their kind of classification for unknown threat actors, so give them a tag there. This was a financial motivated threat actor suspected to have stolen a significant volume of records through Snowflake's customer environments through for stealing malware. They compromise these environments through stolen credentials, advertising victim data on sale for cybercrime forms, attempting to carry out extortion on said victims as well. So the threat campaign that this threat actor was done as a result of numerous successful compromises due to 3 primary factors. So one, the impacted accounts were not configured with MFA enabled, meaning successful authentication would only require username and password. Credential identifying InfoStealer malware output was still valid, but in some cases, years later after stolen, they had not been rotated or updated. Like typical with a lot of things. But 3, impact of Snowflake customer instances did not allow network wireless in place to allow access from trusted locations. And the various InfoStealer malware was used, including Vidar, Raccoon, Rise Pro, Luma, and Meta, etc. And it is kind of just like a quick credit to their blog. And it is kind of like an overview of this kind of attack chain. So information stealing malware going to the customer machine, they acquire the credentials in there. The threat actor used this to kind of go onto the customer instance, do some bit of recon on the database as well, and then form some exfiltration. And then credit again the man for that there. So that was I highly recommend looking at that write up as well. And write up fairs as well in general. So the fall. This doesn't really account for every single one of them, but this is one that has been mentioned quite a bit. So information stealing malware discussed has gained a lot of attention and notoriety over the years. And this kind of lets draws attention to law enforcement. So Operation Magnus will cause the disruption of both Redline and Menace stealers. This is international law enforcement task force seized servers, domains related to the information stealers, and one of those charges being unsealed in the United States and 2 people taken into custody in Belgium. So this is like basically what you would get greeted with in Operation Magnus. They had like a joint law enforcement effort from like the Dutch to US, UK, name it. They seized the Telegram channels infrastructure. They had released a free tool as well for victims being fallen to it. So like ESET, cybersecurity like antivirus company, they released a free tool to detect and remove the Redline and Menace stealers on victim machines. And this is kind of like basically what happened. So US joins international action against Redline and Menace stealers. So they mentioned here that they would seal charges against Maxim. I'm not going to pronounce the last name, but they were one of the developers administrators for the Redline InfoStealer. And this is what the chap looks like. He still has yet to be arrested, but I think they're basically trying to hound him down the moment to this day. But yeah, he is the person responsible for it. But at this moment, I think Redline has been shut down. But with a lot of malware and stuff these days, it doesn't. Things will come back. It's the same way, even with ransomware groups being taken down or dismantled, they always come back in a different name, and then they get the same kind of code base because that's how you can attribute to them. Redline might come back in some shape or form, or they might still linger around. Personally, with working in the TI sphere, and when trying to report this to customers, it's important to kind of note when things are compromised. Like you might have like a list of breach credentials. Someone might be linked to InfoStealer logs, so it's good to kind of note, oh, like you have been impacted by Redline or Raccoon. We'll report that to them in our reports. So this was a kind of like a quick chart made up by Dimitri on Twitter. So it showed that both Redline and Meta stole together 227 million credentials in 2024, which is insane, when you think about it compared to like others. But it just shows you that like them taking that down has made like a kind of like a vacuum within that sphere of like other InfoStealers. And I imagine something might take it up, like replace that. So mitigations. This obviously isn't like, this is just maybe my recommendations. Like this isn't gonna entirely protect you from them, but trust but verify your sources. The big thing that I've kind of talked about today is making sure that when you're downloading something or you're clicking on something, make sure it's actually the thing you're meant to be downloading. Because we went through GitHub, we went through like Steam, 2 legitimate platforms that have been abused to push malware. But you don't know that. It is a bit of a gamble sometimes, but you need to just be careful. Use of MFA, looking at back on the Snowflake thing, maybe if MFA is enabled, it might have helped reduce kind of the impact, but it's not a silver bullet at the end of the day, but it will help. Ensuring regular patches in case vulnerabilities are exploited to get information stealers pushed through, and then you'll conduct them with security awareness. Because at the end of the day, we do this for phishing emails, but information stealing malware is still just as important to share the underlying risk, especially when they can guise themselves about anything. Because like I've seen things about Google Meet calendars getting exposed to it. I've seen like again Capacha pages like that one I mentioned was just one campaign. It's been abused before, so yeah. And then just a quick conclusion. We learned about the wacky world of information stealers, dangers of them, how they can blend into it, learning about the current threat landscape, about what they've partaken in, and then protections as well. And yeah, that wraps up. So, any questions?
We don't really have time for any questions because we're gonna run over.
Oh yeah.
But thank you very much.
All right, stories.